Hello everyone and welcome to this F1 24 tutorial. My name is Brendon Leigh, two-time F1 Sim Racing World Champion. And today's video I'm going to be teaching you how to master the braking phase on the F1 24 game and how you can master it, bring techniques and ultimately elevate your game to beat your friends, the AI, league races and maybe even reach F1 esports one day for yourself at home if that is your desired objective. So I'm going to be going over the little details and the big details, going from, to be honest, your braking shape, your braking performance, to your braking bias, and how you can be influencing the car to manipulate it around the corner as fast as possible. So the first point of discussion is going to be the braking bias within F1 24. You can see on the bottom right hand side of the screen I have my braking bias currently set to 53%. And that is quite simply as it's better to go more rearward on this year's game than it is to go forward, as the front locking is really sensitive and it's something that can happen really easily on this year's game, and you can easily lock up the front inside tyre as you go towards a big braking zone, as I'll start to show you through Mags and Beckett's, or if it's a place that you normally brake. You can see the front left was the first tyre to lock up, and I'm going to go into replay mode so you can show exactly what happened in fact. So you can see going through, we hit the brake, and you can see already the front left was already locked up within a few seconds, to be honest, of hitting the brake pedal, and all other tyres were still rotating freely, and this is just a clear evidence that the front left tyre is the most sensitive tyre in this situation. The same way as if we was turning to the right, the right-hand tyre would be the most sensitive. This is a lot to do with a new physics model, and it can cause the front left and the front right to be elevated and lifting off the ground if you're turning too sharply, as I can maybe show you in some examples. Going down the straight, you can see the car is really pitching and rolling quite heavily, and this is really going to be exaggerated in the replay camera of the game right now, and I can show you as I put all the weight, and now if I look behind, you can see that the front tyre has basically been lifted off the ground and there's very little weight put on that tyre. That's to do with the new, like I say, physics model, where it's trying to simulate a lot of weight transfer. As a baseline, it's pretty good. It needs a little bit more tweaking to be perfect, but they are working on this behind the scenes at Codemasters and EA to make the game even better, and I have confidence that they'll fix this little exploit effectively going forward. So what can you do about it to maximize this part of the game right now, and how you can drive around it for the best efficiency possible until they do fix it? And that is quite simply putting the brake bias quite rearward and anticipating that the front tyre can be quite sensitive in the braking zones. So I'm going to show you an example of what I will do here coming up to turn 3 here in Silverstone. Look at my brake trace on the halo of the car when it goes red. That's what I'm doing with my brake pedal. You can see we're going into the corner, and now we're just going through the left-hander. And effectively, I hit the brake quite hard to start with, start releasing, start trail braking into the corner. If you don't know what trail braking is basically the art of hitting the brake pedal to its maximum capacity and then bleeding off the brake pedal ever so slowly, so gently as we get towards the apex of the corner. Effectively having 100% brake pressure at the start of the braking zone and reaching 0% as we get to the apex, and that is the perfect way to trail brake, and it looks like a very smooth line coming down. So you should see it on the middle of my screen right now, just above the well, just on the halo. We're going to do another trail braking example. Hit the brake pedal, and you can see I'm just rolling the brake pedal all the way into the apex, hitting the brake pedal, rolling it into the apex. And as soon as I'm off the brake pedal, I'm back on the throttle, but we'll talk about the throttle application in a different tutorial. So trail braking, as I talked about, is so vital on this year's game, because if you don't do the trail braking so smoothly, so elegantly, so perfect, to be honest, it will be really sensitive to locking up the front tyre, and this will be costing you dramatic amount of lap time. So yeah, this is the benefit of trail braking, and now I'm going to show you two examples going into the final complex of corners here at Silverstone, when you do trail braking correctly and when you do trail braking in a not correct way, and how it can have drastic effect to the car and how it can become super easy to lock up as well. So we're going to do it not correctly, hit the brake pedal as hard as possible, and there, you see, we hit the brake pedal, we were sat at 100%, and then came off the brake pedal super quickly, and ultimately it's locked the rears of the car and spun the car around. So now you can see in chase camera, just locked the rear tyres, and there was pretty much nothing I could have done about this. Now we're going to do the same situation, but we're going to trail brake appropriately, hit the brake pedal, and then bleed off into the apex nice and smoothly. And by having this predictability with the car, having this trail braking nature, what is smooth, dynamic, and really elegant in its detail and technique, it can help you to be super consistent. So like I say, this trail braking is more vital than ever. It's super vital in every racing, to be honest, if you don't have ABS enabled, that is. Like I say, this is a guide on also how to get rid of the ABS in the F1 game. So yeah, if you don't have the ABS, trail braking is a necessity within pretty much every racing car around the world, especially within the F1 cars as well, because when you start driving with the Formula 1 car, you have so much downforce at 150, 200 miles an hour. You have multiple tons of downforce, what means there's more grip. And this is why trail braking works. And you can see when you're traveling at 180 miles an hour, like we're going to be doing quite quickly in the replay mode, in going into cockpit camera. There we go. So yeah, you can see we're traveling at 180 miles an hour right now. And there's so much tons and grip and potential downforce being pushed into the floor and being pushed into the tires, what's being causing friction with the road. And when you hit the brake, you have so much grip, so much capacity to performance with the car that you can hit the brake pedal as hard as you want, and ultimately it will stick. The slower that you go, the less airflow happens over the car, and this is why you get less and less and less grip, and this is ultimately why you can only apply less brake pressure as you go towards the corner. The same is true within the rain, and this is why you have to drive slower in the rain. Quite simply, well, one, there is less contact patch with the tyre because the tyre is not a slick, it's a groove, so it has less contact patch. But secondly, you're driving slower in the rain because there's less grip, what means you ultimately can generate less grip because you're traveling slower with the airflow over the car, what means ultimately that the car has less downforce and less potential to generate grip. This is why you have to brake softer, you can't brake as hard, you can't drive as fast, and this is the details that make the big difference within racing and can ultimately make the difference between, let's say, 1/10 and 10 seconds over a lap time as well. So now that we talked about the first part of this video with sort of the trail braking and why it's necessity and why you can see it happening on the screen, we're going to quite swiftly move over to the braking bias. And you can see in this year's game, it is better to have the braking bias more towards the rear, quite simply because you can catch oversteer then easier than you can correct lockups in this year's game. So although your car can be quite unstable going into the entry to the corner, running somewhere like 53, 54 brake bias ultimately is faster, as you have a better capacity to catch oversteer than you do to correct lockups in this game. So of course the perfect situation is to not have any oversteer and to not have any lockups, but generally that's really hard to do when driving on the limit. So ultimately, at least in my opinion, it's better to have the brake bias slightly more rearward at the moment, and it can help avoid locking up the front tyres, as I talked about earlier, with them being quite sensitive, and can give you a good ability to rotate the car. You can see right now how easy it is to catch the car, like that. So there's such a good amount of front end grip on this year's game that you can lock up the rears and still get away with it. So use that to your advantage, and that is how you can gain time in the general braking. Next, we're going to go to, let's say, combined corners like chicanes, and how you can also master them as well. Over to Imola. So now we came over to Imola, as quite simply it's one of the best tracks in the world, full stop, but also one of the best tracks in the world to show combined loads and going from high-speed corners into another high-speed corner in a very continuous manner. So you can see we're going to put the brake bias slightly more rearward, and we're going to show you a good braking approach on how you can deal with chicanes and try to get the most out of them as well. So now the key corner that I'm going to be showing you is this second chicane here at Imola, and how you can approach it. Go through the first corner, hit the brake in a straight line, and get the car ready for the second apex. I'm going to go over that in replay mode for you as well, as it can be very difficult to master these types of corners in the situation that they're in, because they're so high speed and so delicate to get the performance out of them. So you can see the first corner we set up with a compromise, and ultimately we're not going all the way to the outside of the track, and as soon as we get in a straight line, you can see we point our car and our steering wheel as straight as possible to make the load dispersion over the front tires. As I talked about earlier, if you have steering lock in this year's game, if you're turning, then the weight transfer is really, really sensitive in this year's game, and that can ultimately cause you to lock the front tire. So as soon as we get in a position, we are going to be braking in a straight line, and then using that straight line as much as possible to slow down the car. Doing that example one more time for you. You can see coming in through the corner, brake in a straight line, get the car set up, off the brakes, through the right-hander. And you can see this plays out time after time after time, and we try to get as much of our braking done in a straight line as possible, while also trying to do the brake trace and trying to do the brake balance as elegantly as possible with the trail braking. There we go. I lost my words. I had to get my mind back in the gear then. But yes, so key points, as I've talked about in my previous year's games, as I did tutorials for like F123, F122, etc, etc, and a lot of the basics are the same, to be honest. You have to be traveling a straight line when you hit the brake pedal, because if you are turning the wheel when you hit the brake pedal, I'm going to show you an example right now. You can see instantly the tires lock up if you're turning, but if you're traveling in a straight line, the brake is much more efficient, like I show you right now. By traveling in a straight line, you can see we can hit maximum brake pressure for much longer before we lock up. This is quite simply as any time that the car is not traveling in a straight line, you lose potential grip and you lose the grip threshold of the car. I can go much more into details about this, as I have done on previous year's videos, and I'm more than happy to do follow-up videos for you as well. But I want, like I said, to keep this as like an entry-level introduction and not make the video too long-winded, and hopefully this video can be helpful, informative to you as well. So yeah, in a very basic summary, when you're turning the wheels of the car, ultimately the car wants to be traveling in a straight line, and while traveling in a straight line you have the most grip threshold possible, as the weight distribution is equal as possible. When you start turning the wheel, the weight distribution changes. You can see that the weight transfer of the car is changing. Even if we're traveling at a really slow speed right now, you can see the weight of the car is sort of moving around quite a lot, and this is, I say ultimately a lot. I say ultimately really, really a lot. So I'm trying not to say ultimately. I just said it. Damn it. Right, okay. Right, let's go back to the point. When your car is like moving its weight transfer like this, you start losing grip potential, because let's say that the front right has 70% of the grip when I turn left, because of course the force of gravity is pushing opposite to the direction that you're traveling, or turning the car, let's say. So in this situation, the front right has 70% of the grip, and how can you expect that 70% of the grip on the front right and 30% of the grip on the front left has an equal ability to have a braking performance? It doesn't. So this is why you get front left or front right lock-ups when you're braking. If you lock up both tires at the same time, you simply have too much pressure applied on the brake pedal. But if you lock up one tire, it's simply to do with weight transfer, and that tire that you have locked up does not have enough weight on it to generate friction into the ground and generate performance as a result of that. So this has been, let's say, an entry-level how to master no ABS on F1 24 with some good guides, tutorial for you at home, some good information I hope, and you can see what's happening with my brake trace in the middle of the screen. With all that being said, thank you so much for watching. The support on this channel has been amazing recently. I really appreciate it. I love you all. Thank you so much. And yeah, I look forward to seeing everyone commenting ultimately underneath the comments. I know it's going to happen already, so yeah. See you on the next live stream. See you on the next videos. Grazie, Ciao. Ooh, that was a nice 360. Ciao.